Hello and welcome to Nawiri Wellness Talks. Today we'll be having an interesting discussion on issues of substance use and abuse. And the angle that we'd want to take today is the less trodden path. Most of us are aware that substance use by the young people, the adolescents, is something that is quite concerning. And a majority of people believe that this is a function of the peers, and that is true, and largely so. However, it happens that that's not the only reason why you find adolescents engaging in substance use and abuse. So what are some of the other reasons that would make an adolescent engage in substance use and abuse? One of the ones we'd like to speak about today is the family situation. So the parenting style is a key contributing factor to substance use and abuse. Many are the instances where very authoritarian kind of parenting, where the parents are so strict that the children don't have space to express themselves, lends itself to them using substances as a way of letting out their frustrations. The other parenting style that is quite related to adolescents engaging in substance use is a permissive style of parenting. This is a situation where the parent has very little, if any, control within the family, and the parenting space. So what tends to happen is that the child grows up appreciating that they can do anything and get away with it, and often they do. So they would start experimenting with the substances. Often the parent would not be aware because they're busy doing other things, and that then provides a genesis for the problem. The other parenting style that is not good, and which has been found through research to contribute to early substance use and abuse by the adolescents, is the neglectful parenting style. This is a style where, as a parent, you're neither present nor absent. You are just there. So the child doesn't know whether they should come to you when they have a problem or not, because when they come, sometimes you're receptive, sometimes you're not. So it's important then as parents that we look out at how we are parenting our children so that we avoid that path. Now, the other thing that would lend itself to adolescents engaging in substance use is performance in school. Now, some are gifted and they're able to get what is taught, and they're average and above average. Those that perform below average tend to get the brunt of it, but it doesn't exclude those who are high performing. So it depends on how are they being appreciated even as they perform in school. Now, if they perceive, it may not be that it is real, but if they perceive that there's so much pressure for them to perform at a certain level, then there's a possibility that they could look for the opportunity to engage in substance use and abuse. So it then behoves the parents to review, I would say, the way in which performance in school is communicated to the children. It's important to know what is the capability of the child. How much push should you provide to the child? How much encouragement ought you have, so that it doesn't appear that in your parenting you're having too much pressure on the child. Now, the other thing that would be a contributing factor is the use of substances by the parents. Now, there are those of us parents who are comfortable to engage in the use of substances in the home environment. Some even do it outside with friends and all that. And it could be something that has been happening from the time these children are young. They have observed what tends to happen with the using of substances, that the mood changes. So they're able to tell. Before the parent takes the substance, they're in this mood. As they take the substance, the mood changes, and often it's a positive mood, and gives them, they get to benefit from the changes in the parental mood. In the face of stress, they will also have observed that when an issue comes up, a parent may resort to taking their stuff. So that being the case, they would learn by observing. So it then means that as a parent, if you're a partaker of substances, then you are potentially putting your child at risk of engaging in the use of the same substances. In relation to that is the availability of the substances. So if these substances are available in the house, then the likelihood of experimentation is quite high. So some believe that the children are responsible enough not to go and partake of it because they have been told not to do so. But the thing that tends to happen is, having observed what happens when the substance is taken, they would likely use it secretly. There are those who attempt to lock it, but even then, those who are persistent will find access to it. So as a parent, you really want to rethink about keeping substances that are of an alcoholic nature within access of the children. And maybe just something to add is, outside of alcohol, which is what most people think about when you talk of substances and the smoked items, there's also the abuse of drugs. So it's important that, as has been said before, all medication should be kept away from children, because there are those who get into the use and subsequent abuse of drugs like painkillers and anti-anxiety medication and other medications that are prescribed for other people. So it's important that all those are kept really under lock and key. Now, another item that lends itself to making it a push factor for adolescents to engage in substance use is abuse. And this is abuse of the different kinds. It could be physical abuse, it could be sexual abuse, it could be verbal abuse. And this typically happening from early in their childhood up to and including the adolescent years. Now, how is that a contributing factor? It would be that those are things that would stress the child. They may not have an appropriate opportunity to discuss these things with a responsible adult and get a resolution around it. So because these things provide them with so much stress, they'd find the use of substances as an effective way of letting the stress disappear. Well, that is not the right way, but it does happen. So as a parent, you really want to be aware, is your child a victim of any form of abuse? And this you'd know if you're engaging with them on a regular basis. You have created the channels for communication and they find it easy to communicate with you. Another thing that would be a problem would be learning disabilities. So there are those who are really not able to achieve certain milestones as far as learning is concerned. And yet, without being taken through the process of diagnosis and determining that they have one or the other learning disorder and having appropriate interventions, they'd be pushed a lot. Yeah? They'd also be the subject of ridicule, both in school and sometimes even at home. The way in which their performance is discussed could be a real source of stress. So it's important that as parents that we take the time to appreciate the capabilities of the children. And if we do observe that they are struggling in one way or another, we'd highly recommend that you take them through an assessment process that will then make it possible to determine if they're having any challenges, and then an appropriate intervention is implemented. Now, the others, I would just want to brush through them. This includes the peer pressure. So you really want to know who your children's friends are. You want to know what they're doing when they're not at home. And when they're at home, you want to have supervision. Because one of the things that has been found from research is the opportunities that present themselves for the adolescents to experiment and even use are those unsupervised opportunities when they're with peers. And peers mean so much to them. So you really want to check out that space of peers. There's also the instances of bullying. If your child is a victim of bullying, they are likely to consider that as an option if inappropriate channels are available to them, or rather, if they don't have what they consider to be appropriate channels to express themselves. And maybe just a note on bullying, it should be taken very seriously by all parents. When a child says they have been bullied, it should not be a subject of ridicule or dismissal, because often it is true. And it is then the responsibility of the parent to intervene appropriately. Parental separation could also contribute to the adolescents going the way of substance use and abuse. And this is particularly true if it is an acrimonious separation. So it behoves the parents, if it has been determined that you really need to separate, it's all well, but try and make it as amicable as is practically possible to avoid affecting the children in the ways that would make them choose alcohol and other substances as coping mechanisms. Death of a close relative, a friend, that as well is something that could contribute to the adolescent considering to go the alcohol and substance use and abuse way. So it's something you want to consider. Finally, I would like to say that parental involvement in the lives of the adolescent is key. All behavior around children revolves around relationships. Now, if you look at the piece of relationships, then you're likely to catch any anomalous behavior on a timely basis. If you fail to do that, then, well, it's only time that will tell. So that would be it from Nawiri Wellness Talks today, and we hope to hear from you. Your comments are quite welcome. Thank you.